Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to my talk today. I'm coming to you from Lenape land, and I am very grateful to be here. However, it is very unseasonably cold, and I can't help but wish that I was actually in the Amazon with all of you instead. However, I'll be talking to you about Wao Terero classifiers from here for now. So as you may know, nominal classification systems are a common feature of languages of lowland South America. However, these systems often challenge typologies of classifiers, and Wao Terero classifiers are no exception to this. They do not display the prototypical characteristics of noun classes or gender, nor the prototypical characteristics of classifiers. They appear on multiple word classes with varying functions, and they constitute what has been called a multifunctional or multiple classifier system. Just as has been noted in other languages of the Northwest Amazon and other regions of Amazonia, and others have mentioned that this is likely due to contact. I've thrown up a couple recent descriptions that follow this similar patterns, but there are many more. But today I'll be talking to you about Wao Terero. It is an isolate spoken by about 2,000 people, mainly on the Waorani Ethnic Reserve here in this light gray color, but also in areas of the Yasuni National Park, as well as in nearby cities such as Coca and Puyo, Tena a little less. And there are other indigenous languages spoken in the area, such as lowland Quechua varieties, Chicham languages, a bit farther north, Sion and Sequoia. And the video data that that I've worked with for this presentation comes from my fieldwork over the past 5 years or so, as well as a corpus that was collected before that time. Some general information about Wao Terero. It's a synthetic, agglutinative, predominantly suffixing language with verbal suffixes for valency, spatial orientation, person, tense, aspect, mood. There are also nominal suffixes for oblique case, and pronouns and demonstratives are close classes. There's no inalienable, inalienable possession distinction. Adjectives, quantifiers, and demonstratives tend to precede the nominal, and there's a host of postpositions. Now, Wao Terero classifiers constitute what I've dubbed a medium-sized class, slightly larger than what we would consider typical of a classifier system, a gender system or a noun class system, but not quite as large as some of the other classifier systems found in the Amazon region. They are dependent suffixes that occur in varied environments on numerals, deictics. There's no genitive on nouns, verbs, and there's some locative use of classifiers as well. And the functions of these classifiers range from deictic functions, reference tracking, and to derivation. So to get a quick peek, look at the numeral and deictic classifiers. First, we have a numeral classifier here where someone has cut down a particular tree. You see that there's a classifier on the first word, which is for firewood, the tree, specific tree name. But here you find it also on the nominal one, the numeral one, followed by a limitative or restrictive suffix to refer to one piece of this tree at a time. And that same classifier can also occur on deictics, the demonstrative, 4 sets of demonstratives here, which can occur in their bare form without a classifier. It's not required. However, the same classifier services in this context as well. Now, this seems to indicate that it's one of these multiple or multifunctional classifier systems, and we'll see how it follows the 3 main functions that have been outlined by Krasnikova of semantic categorization, derivation, and agreement, and how these functions are manifested to different degrees. So first we'll look at a semantic function. A large portion of the identified classifiers are related to parts of the body. So ka, head, ka for head, re or ne, depending on the nasalization of the vowel that precedes it for mouth, wa for foot, but also some expected semantic domains like shape of objects, like bo for spherical objects, as well to states such as be for liquids. So here, some of the So in these, the material preceding the classifier is not always recoverable. However, a guess has been ventured with a couple of these, but you have ben for occurring for in the words for water, blood, lake, liquid form of clay, clay that's been mixed with water, as well as ripe plantain drink, chicha, and more. So they're also associated with a derivational function, which will be the majority of what I'll be talking to you about today. And Krasnikova outlines that these multifunctional classifiers in the Amazon region either derive new noun stems from noun stems or roots, or nominalize and form noun stems from verbal stems. And in addition to that, can form a full NP when occurring with a modifying constituent. And we'll see that Wao Terero does exactly that. You can derive nouns sort of using many classifiers. So here the word for headdress with some unknown root. You have head or top, round, place, shell, or covering. It's used also with bark, fingernail, something like that, hard outside part. That for headdress. And then you also have some classifiers that have combined and appear to act as one. So you have gare, which will be for vessel-like objects. So you have something perhaps typical, traditional, pot for cooking, dicare, but then also you have the word for necklace taking the same garen classifier to be a container for accessories. And similarly, you have machete plus the vessel classifier for a sheath for your machete. But you also have that classifier suffixing to a participle form of the word drink for cup, of the verb drink for cup, as well as to loans, like an e botella care. So vessel plus bottle, vessel on suitcase for purse, and then finally, same vessel on a demonstrative, which this kind of shows the idiosyncrasy of the use, where this is in the response to the topological relations picture series, where there's a lamp hanging from the ceiling. So that sort of lamp shade shape is also interpreted as vessel in that case. And in regards to how they occur with modifiers, generally in Wao Terero, you can qualities can be expressed as predicates. So if you're talking about someone who is young, you can say that they, or being young, winiente. But at the same time, you could talk about young child using winie. You can add the male, third person male suffix for son, dual for children, two children, and same thing for a plural. But you can also have a classifier for tree, like the one we saw earlier. However, this would come to mean secondary forest, like in 6. You have the same classifier suffixing to both old and young to talk about primary forest or old growth forest and secondary forest. This also occurs, as I mentioned earlier, with deictics, and here this operates as a full noun phrase, just as it did with those modifiers. So they had gone up to that leaf being the noun phrase here, maniñabo. And there's also a spatial either extension or application of these body part that of these classifiers that also occur in body parts. So you have something like the ka classifier in the word for head, as well as in the at position for above or up to. And we can see that in A here. My apologies for the numbering. So you have on top, so on top of the tree, yeka, the ka is the same as that classifier that shows up in head. Likewise with yewa, you have the classifier for foot below. And I don't have an example here, but this can also be extended to riverine orientation. So you could talk about something being downriver, you can say yewa ben. So you can have that ben classifier, which is for liquids in these at positions as well. Here we also see how classifiers can be used to derive the for reference to the yolk of a chicken egg in 7 here. So you have tawari and gebo. So you have this bo, which is on egg, but also bo suffixing to the word rojo for red. So a lone modifier there taking the classifier, as well as later on gengare, which is you might recognize the garen, which is that vessel classifier. So, but as the postposition, it means inside. That taking another classifier for mon round. So you have the inside round part of a chicken egg to refer to a yolk. And then some possible variation in how classifiers suffix to nominal elements to either indicate part of that nominal. So you have awenkabo with the head and round classifier for treetop, so upper top part of the tree, as well as tip of the palm. So you have the classifier. This is also composed of the ka head classifier and ro, which is like an edge or path. So at the top point of the palmbil palm. So whether that is deriving a new noun, I am not exactly sure. Moving on to the agreement function. So Krasnova mentions that they can occur on predicates to mark core arguments, either on any predicate or a subclass of predicates. Can it participate in agreement with the NP and possibly classify all nouns? So we'll talk about the predicate behavior and predicates now. So so in 13, we have something that is positioned at the tip of the branches, just like perhaps at the tip of the palmbil palm in the earlier example. So this is more of the classifier is used to indicate a location, as opposed to something in 14 where it's really more of the main argument. Here you have my ankle hurts, so hurt, ankle, me. These are often body part classifiers that surface in these on the verb. So you can have 2 body part classifiers. So here you have don't put your hands in your mouth. So you have the classifier for both hand and mouth. And then you also can see a classifier for buttocks in 16. So a snake is going to bite you in the buttocks. And snake, if it is not interpreted as being some sort of special animate, perhaps maybe in like a mythical context, a snake would have a person marking on the verb, but typically lower level animates do not. Again, more than one classifier can be expressed on the verb. Here you have the verb for head and liquid, the classifier for head and liquid. So put your head into the water. And when the person suffixes are present, the classifiers precede them. So here you have the same classifier for buttocks preceding the person suffix for him. However, they don't always occur on their own like this. They can occur with a co-referential noun. So you have onowa, the full noun form of foot, co-occurring with the classifier wa, that in the verb for have, for leaving footprints. And in discourse, we find that classifiers function to track reference. So this is a situation in which two sisters are scraping bark, and one sister, Marcia, says, "Now step hard on this piece of bark, that piece here." So you have the ta classifier, which is for shell or outer covering, here referring to the bark, being used to refer to the piece of bark, and then later again talking about something that their grandmother has said, where the classifier occurs on the copula, which is a function of a feature of Wao Terero, is that objects are marked with copula plus person suffix if it's a person, or at times classifier suffixes if they to talk of the object. So I hope I've shown you today that Wao Terero could be looked to as another example of a language of the Amazon region that does not exhibit a prototypical classifier system. Some features of the system are characteristic of prototypical classifiers, but others are characteristic of neither gender nor classifiers. They can nominalize verbs. They can be used on interrogative stems. There's lots of derivational functions, including on verbal roots, and to derive spatial appositions. And this is important because the case of Wao Terero and an isolate lends more credence to the idea that these systems can be considered an aerial feature that arose through contact. So thank you very much to all for taking the time to listen today. I would also like to thank the Waorani for allowing me to visit their territory and learn their language, particularly Woyegaba, Lindenkere, Anagaba, Awan, Nyaikaiga, Meme-Nkeri, Carlos-Nkeri, Marcia-Nkeri, Elisa-Nkeri, all of whom who participated in this work in various ways, transcribing, translating, or speaking with me. And to them, I am very grateful. And thank you very much for taking the time to listen today.